Andrew Pieper, you are on Driven to Ride. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. We're really excited to hear your story. You've got a heck of a story for sure. Why don't we just jump right off from there? And what is your claim to fame? What do most people know you for?
In June of 2022, I broke the record for fastest time across America on a motorcycle. And
Okay.
so that's my main thing for as far as motorcycles are concerned.
No big deal. Just went coast to coast. What was your time?
I went from Jacksonville to San Diego, which is the shortest distance across America, in 28 hours and 42 minutes.
28 hours. Man, that's impressive. So, well, we'll get into the trip and the route and the planning and all that kind of stuff and the actual execution of it. But let's kind of go back a little bit. How did you get into motorcycling in the first place? Because I don't think a lot of people just throw a leg over a bike and then just decide to shoot across the country. So how'd you get into it?
Not yeah. And even many people who have thrown like or bike said that sounds like something I never want to do. So really ever since I was a little kid, I was always fascinated by bikes. I thought they were really cool. I thought it was neat that you got to dress up like a Power Ranger to go somewhere and they just seemed like a cool thing to do. I always wanted a bike, and so when I turned 16 and got my license, I immediately got my motorcycle endorsement right after that, and didn't even have a car until college. Just rode everywhere.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, just always had a love for motorcycles.
So it was really more of like a utility thing. Like, even though you thought they were cool, I mean, that's how you got around.
Yep. Yeah. Daily driver for several years. Yep.
Okay. And what was your first bike then?
It was a 1982 Suzuki GS450L.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, an old school
cruiser.
one. I've got a 79 Honda CM400, so I know exactly, riding on those old bikes that are carbureted and, have bad brakes and all that kind of stuff. You learn to ride one of those, you can learn to ride anything. So,
yes.
So when you started riding, like, did you kind of know you were hooked from the start, or was there a moment that you were like, I love riding motorcycles?
Right. Yeah. No. Really, from the start, it was actually kind of the opposite.
Really? Okay.
I was. So I was. I got my endorsement in Florida, and so in Florida, you have to take the motorcycle safety course to get your endorsement, which I think should be a rule across the board. And so, but in the safety class, you're on 125cc bikes in a parking lot, and that's pretty much your whole riding experience. And my parents were very anti-motorcycle for a long time, and so I didn't have dirt bikes or anything growing up, and so this was really my first riding experience. And so the first time I went to like 55 miles an hour was my first time on the road legally, and I was just mortified. I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, I'm so exposed. Like, one mistake and I'm just dead. Like, I'm not comfortable at all. But I already bought the bike. Like, I can't afford a car and a car insurance. Like, this is what I'm doing. So I guess we'll figure it out. So, rode. Took a while to get used to just how different it is from being on a bike versus inside of a car. But when my first job was working at Chrysler as a oil tech, and some of the guys there also rode. So kind of started to get a little bit of a community there with some guys that rode, and they were all about it. So just kind of I'd say more of like the community of that I got involved with, and other people who rode, and just kind of sharing that camaraderie is really what got me sold into motorcycles.
Nice. Yeah, and I imagine they probably got you more comfortable and a lot more confident as the years went on. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So how did you even come up with the idea of trying to break this record, to even go coast to coast? Obviously there's the Cannonball Run, which has been going on for a long time, and a lot of people trying to break records. But what specifically turned you onto it?
Yeah, so it was just one day in Florida. Me and one of my motorcycle buddies were flipping through YouTube, just looking at different motorcycle videos, and then along the side on one of the suggested videos was I broke the record for coast to coast on a motorcycle, and so like, okay, that's an interesting title. Let's click on that. And so it was this guy, Axie Creef, and out of San Antonio, who had done it on a BMW S1000RR, which does not seem like a bike I'd want to ride for a long distance. And
Yeah.
yeah, he had put a fuel cell on the back of his bike and re-geared it so it did 100 miles an hour in first gear, and would he set off he started on the other end. He started in San Diego and rode to Jacksonville with a time of 33 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay.
And so that was he averaged in total, he averaged 72 miles an hour, I think is what his average speed ended up being. And so initially my buddy and I looked at each other and we thought, that doesn't seem like all that fast. Like it's impressive for sure. Like to ride a motorcycle nonstop is difficult, but like we think that's beatable. And then I have a 1999 Honda Blackbird 1100, and so I was like, my bike could do that. Like it's kind of what it was made for, is going across country and doing it in a hurry. So it just kind of just became this thing of like, well, that seems like a really cool thing to say that you did, to do something on a motorcycle that no one else has ever done before, and to do it better than anyone else has done. That's a cool thing to do. And and then already have the bike for it is the biggest thing. And so the next thing is just adding the fuel cell and the logistics of everything. So yeah, I got involved with got connected with some of the Cannonball community online and talking with other long distance riders, and then found out there's another rider named Greg Rice who had done it in a time of 29 hours and 16 minutes or something like that, 29 hours and something on a Goldwing. And Greg Rice is just a crazy long distance rider. He's done he's done over 100 iron butt challenges. Like he's just crazy long distance rides everywhere. So that was a little bit more, that was more impressive, but I still thought, like, the Goldwing was limited to, I think, 115 or something like that. And I was like, my bike will cruise at 115 and then has 3 more gears,
Yeah.
So yeah, I still thought it was beatable. And so yeah, then just set up over the next 2 or 3 months of getting it ready to try and make a run at it.
So let's talk about your mindset a little bit, I think, because you're kind of no stranger to challenging yourself and pushing the limits and trying out new things, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So can you tell me a little bit about, that kind of mindset, about how you've challenged yourself and in what other ways in your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been trying to better myself in whatever. For a while I played poker professionally, and so in poker you're just trying to optimize and to make the best decisions with the information possible. So it's just all about optimizing and trying to figure out what's the best way to do something. So, and I've just kind of always naturally had a very hyper addictive personality. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to be fully involved in it. I don't really halfway do something. It's not not something that that's just in my DNA. If I'm gonna go rock climb, I want to try and be the best rock climber I can be. If I'm gonna ride motorcycles, I'm gonna try and be the best motorcycle rider I can be. And so Yeah, and I think, and that's just how that's how you, I believe that's how you grow as a person, and grow as an individual is through pain, and through process, and through pushing your limits. I can't just go to the gym and sit in the locker room and hope I get a lot stronger, and right, like after there has to be a painful process of breaking muscles down, and in order to grow. And that's how you grow, at the gym, and that's how you grow in life too, is just pushing the limits and pushing your capabilities. And that's how new world records are made, is by people that do stuff that no one else is able to do before.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that mindset is probably the best starting point that you could have. So, before you had done this trip, though, what is the longest trip you had taken?
Yeah, so I rode almost across country, almost nonstop. I had moved from Las Vegas to Central Florida, and I'd driven my car back to Florida, but then my Blackbird was still in Vegas, and so I was just going to. So I drove my car to Florida, then flew back to Vegas, and rode my bike. And I rode my bike from Vegas to Orlando area, and I did that almost nonstop. I stopped for maybe three or 4 hours in Mobile at a rest stop, just resting because I was exhausted. But yeah, but that was the longest trip up until that point, and so.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't the full thing, but that's nothing to sneeze at either. So
No, yeah. So it was already pretty, yeah. And that was kind of off of kind of no prep. Just okay. I guess I'll just ride back, and we'll see how I feel. Like and so that was a fairly impromptu trip, and I handled it fairly okay. And so I was like, okay, this is a bigger challenge, but I think if I prepare properly, I think I'm capable of doing it.
yeah, for sure. And you're not necessarily going in blind. And from watching your video that you've got on your YouTube channel, you also did a lot of preparation for this. You modded out your motorcycle. Let's talk about the Blackbird first a little bit, because you said you added a fuel cell to it. Tell me the rundown of the modifications you did for making this bike cross country ready.
Right. Yeah. Sure. So yeah, apart from just the normal things you do before a trip, making new tires, new chain, oil changes, and everything like that. Did some re-gearing to it. I think the stock sprocket setting is 1742, and I went with like a 1740. I think is what I went with, and so it enabled you to lost a little bit on the low end, but you don't need 0 to 60. You need 60 to 120, and
Right.
so re-geared it for that. So you got a little bit better mileage at high speed, and then I had an 8-gallon fuel cell on the back. The bike came with a luggage system for hard saddlebags and a top box. So just took the top box off, and then bolted a 8-gallon fuel cell to it, and then ran a just a 12-volt fuel pump along the side of it, and then had a fuel hose with a magnet on it, and so that stuck right to the tank, and then had a second key just in the gas tank ready to go. So when my main fuel tank got low, I could open the gas tank and flip the fuel pump on and refill it. So
As you were going down the road, right?
yeah.
And so at 8 gallons on the back, how many gallons of gas does the Blackbird take on the main tank?
5.6, a little over like 14 and a half gallons or so of usable fuel. So
Okay.
it got me
And what
about 400 miles of range at the speed I was riding.
Yeah. So every 400 miles you got to stop and fill up or whatever. That probably has to make it a little bit easier, where you kind of break it down into chunks of like, okay, just got to make it the next 400 miles, next 400 miles, next 400 miles. Did that mindset kind of help at all?
Yeah, it did. And just any breaks, like at all during it. Whether it's traffic, okay, it's traffic, so I have to, I can't go as fast, so maybe
Yeah.
it's a good time to like eat or rehydrate or top off the fuel, something to break up of just trying to go as flat out as possible. Just the mental challenge of just being in race mode for 30 hours straight is very challenging.
Yeah. So let's back up a second just to be clear. So you said
Yeah.
while you're in traffic, you're gonna hydrate, you're gonna eat, you're gonna refuel the bike. I mean, it sounds like you did everything while you were riding, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So the thing about an average speed is when you're going 0 miles an hour, that really kills your average.
Okay.
And most of the people, when it comes to like the cannonball and things, like they don't understand how average speed works. So like like they hear like access time of 72 miles an hour. Oh, I've gone 72 miles an hour. I've averaged 72 miles an hour. No, you haven't. You actually averaged like 54 probably on your trip,
Okay. Yeah.
so being stopped really kills your time, and so you really want to minimize that as much as possible. So yeah, whether it's eating or hydrating, stretching, as long as you're moving forward, even after you have to slow down, to like 50, 60 miles an hour, as long as you can keep moving forward, that's gonna be the key, especially on a bike where you can't do you can't carry 100 gallons of gas like some of the cannonball guys can.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to plan your stops and everything. Let's talk about that route a little bit. Did you pick the route that you did just because the starting point was pretty close to where you're at, because it's the shortest, just it was the most optimized? What was your thought process behind that?
Yeah, so it's the traditional. There's like a traditional start and end point from an address in Jacksonville Beach. It's not a specific beach or anything. It's just one beach parking lot, and then
Sure.
to Dog Beach, California, and San Diego is the start and end points, just like Red Ball and the Portofino for the Cannonball. And then
Right.
from then on, it's pretty much just no holds barred, whatever is the fastest way to it. It's very simple for the Jacksonville to San Diego, because it's almost 90% of I-10, and then in Phoenix you hop onto I-8, and that takes you to San Diego.
Okay.
So
So
that's
you're basically
pretty
just
much
running
it.
the interstates the whole time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you kind of plan out your route, like timing wise and city wise? Tell me about what kind of went into that, the route planning.
Right. Yeah. So the major fact. So with all there are so many variables. There's probably like 130 variables of this
Oh,
trip
really?
of for all these little small things that you wouldn't normally think about. Like like how am I going to? Okay, I'm going to have snacks. How am I going to get the snacks open? How am I?
Yeah.
How many calories am I going to pack with me?
Yeah.
I have a hydration bladder. Is the 32 ounces enough fluid? So probably not. Okay, so how am I going to carry those, and how am I going to refuel those? And just all these small little things. So the major variables that you don't really have that much control over is weather, law enforcement, and traffic. Those are the three big ones. And so,
Right.
and you can kind of mitigate those a little bit depending on your circumstances, but those are just kind of unknowns. So so weekend runs are going to be the best for like Saturday evening, and then Sundays is the least amount of traffic typically across major cities. And so you're trying to optimize your departure time to kind of projecting what your average speed will be to getting through major cities at non-peak rush hour times. And so it's really focused on getting through the major cities at low traffic periods.
Yeah. Cause I mean, even if you're on the interstates, I mean, I live outside of Chicago. We have half a dozen interstates here. And if you're on there, I mean, it could be a matter of 10 minutes between a smooth ride into or out of the city. and it taking another hour in terms of traffic.
Yes.
So I have to imagine that has to be a big consideration. But it sounds like a lot more than just, worrying about traffic and gas stations. Like you said, snacks. How am I going to open the snacks? How am I going to get more fluids? Because, yeah, I mean, I think you're supposed to drink 8 glasses of water every 24 hours or something a day. That's 64 ounces. So if you only have 32 ounces of water, I mean, you got to figure out how to do all that stuff. I mean, it sounds like there's a
Right.
lot more into planning this than at face value.
Yeah, and that's another interesting from a physical aspect. It was even more taxing than I initially even realized. So you're trying to come up with as much ways as reasonable to kind of track your route and to have it as evidence, and in case one thing fails, you have a backup for
Yeah,
your
yeah, sure.
tracking. So I have a Garmin smartwatch, and I was like, oh, perfect! I have a GPS tracking watch. I'll just turn that on, and would have worked great, but GPS tracking just kills the battery on that thing. So instead
Sure,
of
yeah.
lasting the 30 hours, it only lasted 12 hours. So it died like somewhere in Texas. But even on that that 12 hours, I'd gone like 1,200 miles, and over the course of like 12 hours, I burned 2,800 calories just riding.
Wow.
That was it.
Yeah, and yeah, you're basically just in the same position the whole time, but you're holding on, and like you said, maybe stopping to get off and fill up gas and all that, but really just staying somewhat static. So,
Right.
um, well, let's talk about the numbers real quick. Tell me how many miles the trip was. You've talked about average speed a little bit. What was your average speed?
Yeah, so my average speed was 84 miles an hour.
Okay. That sounds, again, like you said, it sounds impressive, but it doesn't sound all that fast. So tell me a little bit more about this average
Yeah.
speed a little bit. Like, do you know what your fastest speed was that you can maybe legally say, or what your, aside from being stopped, what your slowest speed was?
Yeah, so my according to the GPS, my top speed was 142 miles an hour, and now that the statute of limitations has passed, I'm able to say
Casual, no
that.
big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, then slowest point was going through El Paso. I got through El Paso around 3 or 4 o'clock on a Saturday. I didn't think getting through there at 3 or 4 would be a big deal, but just it was with just the it's right on the U.S. Mexico border,
Yeah.
and so you have all this traffic coming south and south to north, and then also east to west, and it was pretty slow going through there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to imagine it's one thing when you're cruising at 100, 120, 130 or whatever, but it's got to be a lot more stressful, like you said, when you're going maybe 55, 45, dealing with traffic, because it's like, oh my God, let's go,
Right, like nobody else realizes what you're trying to do.
Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody
and
else
also
cares.
and also like I mentioned this a little bit in the video. Like you're not doing you're not trying to be Jixerbra or Max Risty out here. Flying
Right.
150 miles an hour, lane splitting through traffic. Like that's a great. Not only that is that a great way to die, it's also a great way for other people to call into the police. Say, hey, there's a guy on a motorcycle doing 150. He's going to kill himself. Like you need to get somebody out here.
Yeah,
So
attracting attention.
So drawing attention to yourself in that way is just has a way more negatives than it does positives. So you're really trying to focus on like closing speed, not passing people going that fast. Just cut, if you're passing people doing 100 and they're doing 85, it's not that big a deal. You're pretty used to that. But yeah, if you do fly by someone doing 150 or something, that's a good way to have some new friends pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like it's going fast but smoothly. My dad, he always says there's a way to drive or ride fast without looking like you're riding fast.
Sure.
That
Absolutely.
sounds like the strategy you took. But let's talk about the law enforcement side of things a little bit. It sounds like you had a good strategy. You're not lane splitting. You're not, doing the Jixerbra thing going 160 in between all these cars and stuff. But what did you do to kind of either stay aware of speed traps? I'm sure you saw a couple of cops on the way. What was your strategy there?
Yeah, throughout the whole ride, I had a team on following me on Discord and tracking my GPS location and through the
Okay.
Bluetooth in my helmet. So I had a whole team advising me on weather updates, traffic updates. One of my road captain would spoof his location to like 50 miles ahead of me on Waze, and he would
Okay.
give me a little bit more notice, but. Yeah, I was running two phones, so I was running Google Maps and Waze, both of which have crowdsourced police alerts, and then also was running a Valentine One radar detector, which also is Bluetooth and also brings in crowdsourced alerts right to your helmet. So between the combination of all those, yeah, I don't I think maybe one cop that I was kind of caught me off guard that the radar detector picked up, but everything else was well in advance of for getting notice of potential speed traps or things. And so you just be I remember one time, and I think through Arizona I was just kind of laughing to myself because I know I was notified of a police officer ahead, so it was an open road, so I was just flying, and I was like, okay, let me slow down to 75. And a few minutes later, there's a state trooper. He has a minivan pulled over, and like 5 minutes ago I was doing 140, but like you got the minivan.
Yeah, seriously. It sounds like, I mean, obviously there's preparation and thinking ahead, and it's super cool that you have a team and everything, but some of it just sounds like luck too. Because you could have somebody just sitting that just got to like a U-turn, or they just got done pulling somebody over, or like they maybe have that van pulled over and you didn't see it, and then you blew by at 140. That van
and say, have a nice day. I gotta go.
Yeah, that van is the luckiest van in the state, and you're done. So, did you have any close calls like that, or it sounds like you kind of were pretty fortunate the whole way?
Yeah, as far as that goes, it was pretty fortunate. Texas was kind of a disappointment because after you get through San Antonio, you just have wide open West Texas, and it's nothing but wide open rolling hills. Just nothing, 50 miles between gas stations, nothing out there. Great spot to fly. And so I was maybe an hour or two outside of San Antonio, and then I come up on a white SUV that's a state trooper, and I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just pacing this guy. He was at least going, the speed limit was 85 in Texas, so he was doing 85. So I'm pacing this guy for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. He still hasn't gotten off. I'm like, where are you going, dude? Like, what is your area of patrol? The entire state of Texas? Like, so I could have easily been on like in the 27 hours if I hadn't like run into that guy, And thankfully, I was at a good enough pace to where I was already like decently ahead on a little bit of head of pace to break the record. If not, I might have just risked it and said, okay, well, here we go.
Yeah.
But yeah. So as far as that goes, pretty fortunate. No real police scares. No.
Yeah, that's good. That probably helps lower the stress level a little bit.
Yeah.
So you started at night, and then like went overnight, and then kind of was the bulk of your ride was through the day. What was the strategy behind that? And was it easier to ride overnight, during the day, maybe a little bit of both?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit easier at night. You don't have nearly as much traffic to deal with, and with the if you have a good lighting system on your bike, then it's fine to you can still see plenty ahead. You do have wildlife, which is another one of the variables. I remember in Florida, just flying by a group of deer on the side of the road. Like, man, like if they had just decided that it was time to cross the road, like that's it. Like nothing you can do. A turtle crossing the road, like a piece of tire, in the road, like all these. It doesn't matter how much money you have, or how the fastest bike or whatever, like a turtle can ruin your entire day.
So that's, I guess it has the nighttime has its unique challenges just as much as daytime and traffic would. So
So yeah.
So going through your stops, how many stops did you make along the way?
Yeah, so I ended up stopping 7 times in total.
Okay. And then that was purely like to refuel and all that.
Yeah, pure fuel stops. Was what a lot of people ask how you go to the bathroom, and so I had planned to. I had was wearing a condom catheter, which I thought would be fine, and just route the tubing down through my pants and just keep on going. But in the riding position that you're on in the Blackbird, just like this, it was
Punched,
just completely just does not work. Can confirm that it's not physically possible to go to the bathroom like that. So finally in like New Mexico or something like that, I had to I have to go. So I went inside the gas station and use the bathroom there. So that fuel stop cost a few more minutes than other ones. But everything else was just gas and go. Would try and find an empty fuel pump and hop off the bike and walk around to this pump on the other side and start fill up the 8-gallon fuel pump, and then use the other pump to fill up my main tank, and just ran 2 hoses like that.
That's smart. Yeah, that probably saves a couple of minutes each time too, and it adds up. It adds up. Like you said, each minute kind of matters. So. Obviously then, if you didn't sleep at all, so you were up for probably 36 hours without stopping.
Yeah, probably more than that. Cause I was up from, I think 9 or 10 in the morning to, East Coast time to about midnight of the following day Pacific time. So about 3 a.m. Pacific. Yeah. So yeah, quite a ways, because
almost 2 full days.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, because I was. Yeah, so I left at sunset Jacksonville time, and was planning. It was about 150 miles or so from my house to the beach in Jacksonville, and was planning to just have my buddy trailer the bike up there. I was I don't want to do any more riding than I absolutely have to. And so we're putting it on the trailer and everything. And then it was a new trailer to him. And so he had just got it, and he plugged in the trailer lights, and then the van died. And we're like, what's going on here?
Oh, jeez.
And so, the guy had wired stuff all backwards, and had, run, hot to ground and stuff. So he blew a couple fuses in his van. And so we're like, okay, whatever. It's only 150 more on a 2,400-mile trip. I'll ride up there. So yeah, had to take the time to ride up there, and then I hadn't booked my hotel in advance there, because I wasn't sure if I could, if I was gonna make it or something. If I broke down, I didn't want to have to pay for a hotel across the country that I wasn't gonna make.
Sure, yeah.
Something like that. So I was just planning to book one when I got there, and so I booked on. So after the run, I had kind of calmed down a bit. I went on Hotwire, and I booked. And if you've ever booked on Hotwire, they don't show you your exact hotel. They just show you, hey, it's in this area of town. And I was like, okay, this is a good general area of town. It's not that far away. But on that, so I booked it, and they showed me the address, and that area of town my hotel was way on the far edge of that area, as far as you could get. So it was 45-minute ride to get to that hotel. It was almost in Mexico. I was like, great, here's your reward. You get to go to 45 more minutes on the highway, just what you wanted.
Yeah. So was there a point in that trip that you knew that you were going to break it, or was it pretty close the whole time?
Yeah, so every hour I would get an update from my rope captain, and he would say, "Hey, here's your average speed, and here's what you need to average for the rest of the run to break the record." And so once I was in Phoenix and getting onto I-8, I had an average speed of 83 miles an hour, and to beat the record, I needed to average 75. From Phoenix to San Diego. So I was like, okay, I just need to average the speed limit for the last 350 miles. This is looking pretty good.
Yeah, Yeah. So did that kind of calm you down a little bit, or was it like as you got closer, did your stress level and did like the stakes kind of raise in your head?
Yeah, it's kind of like in golf where it gets a lot more important to not mess up the closer that you get to your target.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's all that's going through your mind is like, okay, like don't like stall the bike out and lurch it and drop it at an intersection or something. Don't turn the wrong way down the street. Don't
Right.
you're just worried about not messing up, not doing something stupid that's gonna cost you time or dump the bike. So you are definitely feeling like kind of just trying to focus on like, okay, like let's just make sure that we can get there, not mess this thing up. Like after, especially once you're on like surface streets and off the interstate, and yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, going through the mountains of San Diego was easily the most physically daunting part of the ride because it's not exactly the Rockies or anything, but it is still going through mountains and you're going up and down elevation and through these mountain roads at night on 26 hours of riding and
Yeah.
high winds like 23 mile an hour winds and with 8 gallons of fuel behind you and on a 600-pound bike. And so I was going very slow throughout that time. I was just trying to, just get out of the mountains alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I said, I was going to say, you're probably like super gassed physically, mentally by that point, and then you hit the mountains.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, driving or riding up and over mountain passes and stuff can be stressful and tiring, even when you've gotten a full night's sleep. So if you've been up for a day and a half and all that, you just got to think, just don't mess up. Don't mess up. Like that's gotta be tough.
Yeah. Anytime you're riding and you see multiple sunsets, that's you've been riding for pretty long.
Yeah, that had to mess with your head a little bit. Like, just your sense of time. Did you even have like a sense of time, or was it just like an hour by hour thing?
Yeah, I had a general idea. I'd driven long distances before. I'd
Sure,
crossed the
yeah.
country, like a dozen times or so before on cars and things. So I was familiar with long distance trips like that. But yeah, it's still just you kind of just go into just another mode of just like, okay, like I don't care how much it sucks, like I'm gonna get this done. If my like my glove wasn't one of my gloves wasn't very touchscreen compatible, even though it was
Oh,
supposed to be. So
sure.
after wasn't having to use your phone all that much to like open different apps or anything. You're mostly just riding, but sometimes you needed to like open up Discord or open up another map or a weather app or something.
Sure.
And so with the gloves I was working with, it was just very touching the wrong thing like constantly. And so like a few hours into the ride, I stitched my glove and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ride with one glove and have a weird chin line for a few weeks because I think it's faster to I think it's more efficient to like ride without a glove on one hand than be fumbling with my phone when I should be looking at the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, optimizing and everything. So, it's kind of a weird question, but did you get bored at all? Like, like going through West Texas, like, or like kind of in the middle of nowhere? I mean, was there any point where you were just like bored and spacing out, or were you pretty dialed in the whole time? Or did you have like maybe a playlist you listened to or something like on Spotify or?
I had I was trying Spotify for music pretty much the whole ride. I tried to listen to like some Bill Burr comedy, and that just wasn't cutting it. I was like, nope, this
Okay.
is not do it. I have to get back to music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my number one song of that trip was Danger Zone. I think I listened to that thing like 34 times from that trip.
Wow. Well, you had the time, so.
So yeah. Still haven't got tired of that. So and then but yeah, it was just there was probably through West Texas of just because it was during the day and hardly any traffic and just long open stretches of just man, like I've been riding for a long time and I'm like halfway there, like so
Yeah.
it is just kind of a daunting task of just like, okay, just have to embrace the suck and go with it,
Yeah. Yeah. So when you got to the beach in San Diego and you finally finished it, kickstand down, what did that feel like to finally get off the bike?
It was pretty surreal to just get off the bike and then hear the guys in my helmet, they're calculating like the final times and like, did you get it? Oh, I freaking got it, dude. Like, yes, like, like new record. And so just, and that, it's just you and the guys in your helmet in the whole world that know it at that point.
Sure.
There's no welcome partying or anything. Like,
there's no crowd of people waiting for you.
Everyone else is just at the beach drinking, like it's so so you're just kind of like in your own little space and so, but it was pretty excited, pretty thrilled to have done that, to have gone from just seeing a YouTube video and like, I think I could do that, and then it was way harder than I thought it would be, but I did it. So it was pretty cool thing.
Congratulations, man. That's it's impressive no matter what. Although, and you say this in the video too, is you are not currently the record holder. Somebody beat you not too long after, right?
Yeah, not that long ago either. Yeah, so in October of 2023, a guy named Jacob Scruggs on his Harley Davidson Ultra Limited with fuel cells in the saddlebags beat it by a measly time of 17 minutes. So he did it in 20 hours and 28 minutes, which is just, on a 24-hour trip, like, to be that close either way is just very, very rare. Like the odds of that is just extremely like, very slim to have a time that close is just kind of wild. And then to have it beat by, I mean, a guy in a Harley, you're just like, man, like this, it's a little bit demoralizing. Like, like all the credit to him, first of all, like it's a crazy ride. Like, you did it fantastic, but if you beat it by 2 hours, I would have felt way better, honestly. 17 minutes is just, come on, man.
Yeah, because like 17 minutes could have been like if you hadn't had to pace that cop in West Texas, if you didn't have to get off the bike to pee, like it probably ran through every single scenario in your head that you could have shaved some time off. So, well, then the question is, are you going to do a round two and try to beat him?
100%.
Awesome. That's cool. I mean, so do you still enjoy riding? I mean, after that entire debacle?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, good. So currently, I live in upstate South Carolina, so right in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, and so still love going out for rides on mountain roads, or I'll go back to Florida sometimes, and that's about a 500-mile ride. I enjoy all forms of riding, whether it's just some twisties up in mountains, or a little bit longer distances. This is an incredible experience, like one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life, for sure. But I wouldn't call it fun. Like it wasn't a fun thing. It was really hard.
Yeah, it wasn't a leisure trip. So, but hey, man, kudos to you if you're going to do it again. And I'm excited to see that happen. Do you know when that's going to happen, or? Sometime in 2024. The general area. Not exactly sure of the exact timeline there. Yeah, same route and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What without maybe spoiling any secrets or surprises, what's kind of the biggest thing you learned to maybe optimize this round two trip?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's several little things that I learned of different difficulties along the way.
Sure.
Upgrading to like upgrading to a better helmet is up there. I had like a fine helmet, but it was I think it was like a Bell helmet or something. I forget the exact brand name, but not a $500 $600 helmet, like $150 from Psycho Gear. And so the wind noise was a little bit much, and then just the pressure on your forehead was just like, that was one of the main things, was just like having this pressure from all the wind
Oh,
for
sure.
that many
Yeah.
hours
Yeah.
was, that was kind of wasn't that enjoyable. So upgrading the helmet, and can re-gear the bike more aggressively, can probably carry more gas, can install, do a quick shifter and a gear indicator, and a few different small things like that to just try and optimize it and get a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, the minutes add up. So I have to imagine all those small improvements are going to add up to make it not only a faster trip, but also an easier trip.
Right. Yeah. For sure. And like another question that a lot of people ask is so are you in the Guinness Book of World Records? No. So back in 1992, Guinness used to recognize A to B records and used to recognize all the Cannonball records and everything.
Okay. Yeah.
And then in the 90s, they decided, you know what? There might be a little bit of liability kind of semi-promoting these illegal records that you have to break the law to do. So we're just not going to recognize any more of those. So if you're going to do some sort of long distance thing, it has to be on a closed track where it's legal. So it's not official. There's an unofficial, like Google spreadsheet that has all the Cannonball times, all the San Diego to Jacksonville times and things like that. But as far as like being in the book, it's not a thing. Although like there are a couple like Guinness World Records that I might like try and go after sometime. I would like to make an attempt, but we'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you share what one or two of those may be?
Yeah, sure. So there's the two that I was looking at are kind of are fairly different. One is mostly all just kind of logistics and planning, and I think is a very easily a lot easier to accomplish. And so one is so that one, it would be the fastest time to visit all 51 national parks in the continental US.
Okay.
So that was done last 1 or 2 years ago by a guy in a Harley Pan America, and he was the first one to ever do it. And so he kind of contacted Guinness and said, "Hey, what's the parameters for this thing, and
Sure.
what am I allowed to do, what am I not allowed to do, and how do I track it and everything?" So he visited like all 51 parks, and over the course of a couple months, like 51 days or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So he'd spend 2 or 3 days sometimes in a park, and so I think 51 days to visit all 48 states is definitely a time that's doable. It's just a matter of getting the logistics of everything down, because some parks you need passes to get into and things like that. So logistics wise, it's a little bit more of a challenge, but I think that's doable and something that I could do. That would be a legitimate record. And then the other one is definitely more physically daunting, but I think doable. And that is the furthest distance traveled in 24 hours. And
Okay.
so that was set by Ivan Cervantes, who is a 6-time Enduro world champion, but and he's a sponsored rider for pro rider for Yamaha, and so he did it probably at the best track in the world to do it on in Italy. They have a Nordo high speed loop, which is just a 8-mile high speed loop. It's just one big donut that's 8 miles,
Okay.
to go around, and so he had a whole pit crew there to help him with that. But his I forget exactly what my I'm not sure if I have the numbers for what my total stop time was on my run, but I know it was probably like might have been an hour total stopped time. So his stop time for his ride was almost 4 hours. He was stopped for like 3 hours and 45 minutes, and
Okay.
he did it on a bike that didn't have cruise control. Well, it did have cruise control, but it only worked to like 80 miles an hour or something. And so he was like doing it. He was going, he was at full tilt, and that his bike only did, I think, 120 tops. So he just like had it at red line the entire time,
pinned the whole time.
And didn't have a fuel cell or anything. Like Yamaha kind of did it like as a promotion of like, hey, there's no extra things on this bike. You can walk into the factory and walk into the ship and buy this exact world record bike.
Yeah.
So no fuel cell. Was stopped for almost 4 hours. He had to stop 17 times for fuel because without that, when he had to change the rear tire, when they changed the rear tire out, they didn't have a new wheel ready to go and just pop on. They like broke the tire down and changed it like that. So so there's like all these things where like, I think, it was impressive. He rode over, he averaged, over 100 miles an hour doing it. I think he average speed was like 104 miles an hour for the 24 hours. Very impressive. But with all these things that I think could be improved, I'm like, man, like I rode, pretty hard too on an open road with I didn't have a closed track with no traffic. So I think if I can find a track that will is big enough and will let me do it, I think I think that's doable to get after. But more challenging
going up against like a six-time world champion racer. That's no joke. So you've got your set sight high, man, but I'm all for it. So where can we kind of follow along with your journeys of doing the coast to coast again, or maybe tackling these new records?
Yeah, sure, for sure. So I'm on all forms of social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all at Bike King 19, Bike King 19, and yes, that's where people can follow me, or just go to bikeking19.com and find all my stuff there.
Cool. Well, Andrew Pieper, congratulations. I'm excited to see you do it again, and big props to you, my friend. Thanks for being on Driven to Ride, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.